You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Very good afternoon. A very good afternoon. We are live on Radio 54 African Panorama. Welcome to the second part of the show, to the second segment of the show. And like I said earlier, this is Youth Month, and we are celebrating, not Youth Month, sorry, this is Africa Month, and we are here celebrating, the month of Africa, and we are looking at, are young people ready to take over? Are young people ready to take over as presidents? Are they ready to take over as continental leaders? It is a burning question for almost everyone. We have seen around the world young people trying to stand up, forming youth groups, coming together, and so forth. And it also takes us back to revolutionary struggle when we fought apartheid, colonization, slavery, and everything. It was youth, it was young people who still rose up to fight the elephant in the room. So yes, should be expected that young people could want to stand up, could want to fight, and so forth. But here is the question: is this generation of youth ready to lead the country and all the continent? We have seen in Zimbabwe, young people were all over. What you call Passion Java, celebrities, and so forth. And there was a lot of criticism as to why they should be running after celebrities and so forth. Why are they not rallying behind activists in economic building, in policy changing, and trying to move the country to another direction? But hey, people are people. We want different things. But will that actually say young people are not ready, young people are not serious, young people don't want to do this? I think it's not fair to that. But anyway, we'll get back to that. If you just tuned in, this is Matamatarenda Shomba on Radio 54 African Panorama. I'm joined in here by King Ajamo, who is based in Florida, United States, who is part of the United family. United new family, and also you've done quite a lot. I've worked with them on a project where we are trying to mobilize sanitary wear for our girls in Zimbabwe. We have done twice already, and it's been really quite influential and in everything that we are doing to shape Africa. And we appreciate you today for joining us again. And like I said, Ed, I said the other day, I'll keep on bringing you in because there is so much knowledge and so much that is out there that you might not know about Africa, that we might not know about our brothers and sisters that side. So this is sort of this is sort of an exchange program to make sure that when you are that side, we are here, we are sharing information and to move Africa forward. So King Ajamo, welcome to the show. We're gonna have King Kwame Gonza is joining us just now in a second. They wanted to do some protest, but then the police said, no, you cannot do the protest. So they will be protesting online. So he's begging to come here and share why they were not allowed to do what they wanted to do. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. Do you think this generation of youth is ready for leadership?
Well, like I've said in the past, and will continue to say, is that there has to be an honest evaluation or critique to the present leaders that are in Africa. So whether someone thinks they're bad or good, there has to be a honest critique of that.
Okay.
And then on top of that, you would have to understand, you would have to understand the relationship between all of the African countries in, say, Europe or Asia or even Asia or South America or even, where I'm at in the Western Hemisphere. Like limit that exchange to a certain point I'm not saying because a lot of people think that when I say cut off certain people, that I'm advocating violence or advocating hate. That's not the case. China cut off their borders for 50 years, but nobody talks about that. Nobody
That's
talks
true.
about how certain countries they just shut down their borders so they can internalize whatever they're trying to internalize to get it right, and then they open up their borders to the world. So Africa would have to, in my opinion, look at that. And then last but not least, they would have to build institutions within those African countries that would support um, a unified Africa. So you're looking at education. Um, there's a lot of things that but education would be one. You don't want an education system that is actually going against what you believe as an African to unite your own country and so forth. So you're not going to you're not going to read about George Washington in an education system that would be promoting African unity. That makes no sense to me. However, those things would have to be in place. And then also too, you got to look at whatever is in place now. Is that working? Is that working? The idea of a president, a vice president, secretary, all that stuff. Is that the right structure? Is that going to work? And I think a lot of people assume, because I have conversations with a lot of brothers on this side, and they always say, well, if we could just put the right person in a position that would be for the people, then they could actually prosper or do the right thing or whatever it may be, the system will work. And I'm like, but wait a minute, did you check the system first? Did you look at the system to see if that actually is feasible? Maybe you got to go, maybe you got to restructure things. Maybe you got to call it something else. But I think young people are resilient. And I think that they're very innovative, and they can come up with something that will, bring us forward and so forth. And I think my generation, unfortunately, kind of, they kind of, how do I put this? They kind of rested too much. They kind of, I mean, some people didn't. Some people went out and did what they had to do to keep a momentum moving as far as a united Africa. But some people just kind of kick back and say, well, let's just let it go and see what happens. And
it is what it is.
They're kind of like a lazy type of attitude toward things. Like, it's working now. Let's just let it go. Everything's gonna be all right, I guess. We're just gonna let it move along as it is. So that's just my opinion. Because after 1960, 1970, which is way before some of y'all were born, I was born in 72. So during that time period, like in the 70s, early 80s, things just kind of just slowed down. There was no really, I'm not sure about on that side, but I know on this side, there was no person or persons or groups that were, extremely influential in the development of the idea to unite as one people globally. So that, I'm not discrediting any group at all or any person. It's not like that. It just seems like the momentum kind of stopped. If you look at it from a historical standpoint, over a 20-year period, it kind of slowed down. Now it's picking up. And then a lot of those older people, they're just tired, I guess, or they're just too old or not connecting with, I don't know what's going on. But that has to be examined. But now, since the wave came in, I think that we should all jump on the wave and keep it flowing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I would like to move on to King Kwame Gonza, who just joined us today. He's one of those young people who have this burning desire to unite Africa. I think he is one of those people that I know on the ground who say Africa unity first. Without Africa unity, you can talk about anything else. It won't work if we don't unite as Africans. And he's been advocating for that for quite some time. And I know that he wanted to do something today, and you guys were told no. So, is there a platform, King Gonza, for young people to actually showcase what they can do if there is always a no coming from the top office?
Thank you, Martha. First of all, I want to thank Radio 54, Panorama, for creating these opportunities, these platforms whereby we can come and speak our minds as Africans. And I want to thank you also for being very passionate about our continent and all parts of Africa. I think this is the spirit which we need, all of us Africans. And when I say Africans, I mean those on the continent and all people of African descent outside the continent. It is very, very important. In all ages, it has been the young people who come up with radical ideas to change society. It is not all the people who change society. So,
That's right.
so when you see that a society has a lot of problems, most of those problems are caused by all the people who do not have this revolutionary thinking, and especially those ones who lack wisdom. There's a lot of all the people who have a lot of wisdom, but when you find that society has relegated its old people who have wisdom on the sidelines of society, then those ones who are bad, they take over and they control society, and then society spirals into it spirals into a downward spiral. It goes into a downward spiral. So in all these ages, it has been the young people who have come up. You can talk of Martin Luther King Jr., for example, in the United States. He was around 29 years by the time they signed the Civil Rights Bill. You can talk of people like Malcolm X. These were people in their 30s. Chrissy Honey, Nelson Mandela. All these guys were young people, okay?
That's
because
right.
the young people, they have this imagination. They have been gifted with the imagination and the ability to see the future, to imagine, and everything starts from imagination. So you can talk to people like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. They were very young people. You can talk to people like Sobukwe. You can talk of people like Thomas Sankara. He was very young when he died, I think around 35 to 34 years.
That's
yes,
true.
he was very young. You can talk of Patrice Lumumba. These were all young people, 29 years. So the responsibility of organizing and correcting society is always on the shoulder. It has always fallen on the shoulders of the young people. So in Africa, it is up to us to realize that responsibility. So what I would say to the young people is that they have to realize that this is their responsibility. They should not let the old, unwise people to stay in power and continue destroying the continent and not think about the future. So they have to rise up. Those platforms are there, definitely. The platforms start with what we are doing now. When we start calling them out, you can see that in Nigeria, these things have started. You can see the demonstrations which were there recently in Nigeria. You can see that in Uganda, and all these countries are mostly governed by all the old people, most of them who are not visionaries, who don't have visionaries. You can see this in Kenya. There is a movement which is going on there in Kenya, whereby the people are trying to stop the privileged class, which calls itself the government there, from taking more loans from the IMF. The IMF and World Bank, which organizations we know very well have been instrumental in impoverishing Africa through the structural adjustments, the Millennium Development Goals, you know, and then now we have the SDGs. All these instruments were designed by Europeans to impoverish Africa. But yet we have cowardly type of leadership who continue to lie to their people, and they don't want to tell their people the truth that these instruments, they will not lift us out of poverty. The IMF and the World Bank have never lifted any country out of poverty. So it is up to the people themselves to rise up and lift their countries out of poverty. So we can, an example is Zimbabwe even right now. Zimbabwe right now is performing a lot far better than a lot of countries on the African continent. But Zimbabwe is under sanctions, is not taking any loans, but yet is performing better than all the other countries in Francophone Africa, where France is occupying about 14 countries there. Maybe just a few countries like Ivory Coast and Senegal, but Zimbabwe is performing far better than all those countries which don't even have sanctions. So you can see that it has to be within the people themselves. Now, we as a people, we as African people, we as African youth, we have to tap into the wisdom of our elders, those who are wise, not those ones who are not wise.
Yeah, so we have two types.
Yes, we have two types of elders. There is those who are not wise, and we have seen a lot of those in government structures. And we have those who are wise and visionary leaders. Some of them have written down things and have told us what to do. People like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, people like the Sobukwe, Robert Sobukwe, people like Biko, okay, people like Lumumba. These are people we can tap into. These are people who have written down their wisdom and they have left it for us. And these bad people, they neglect that wisdom and they don't want to carry it on because they want to please their masters, and then they want to please their pockets. So that is why you see they fly out to foreign countries when they want treatment. They send their children out to foreign countries and they leave systems which are not functional in the African continent. So we have to tap into this wisdom. First of all, we have to understand that the responsibility is on us. And then we have to step out. Once we understand that the responsibility is upon us for the whole continent, not only simple one territory. Because there's a tragedy that has happened in Africa for a very long time, which Dr. Kwame warned about us. And he warned us about, he warned us that if we neglect the continent and think that we are going to develop one side of the continent and leave the other, we are messing up. We are, you know, we are destroying actually the continent. Because the thing is, the whole continent is a mass, is a land mass. You cannot say you are going to develop a country like Ghana when it is surrounded by is surrounded by Togo, Burkina Faso, and it is, you know, surrounded by a sea of poverty. It is not possible. All these people, they will run in and eat whatever is happening in Ghana, and then you will have internal chaos. You will have a war going on between the natives who are so-called Ghanaians, and then the Togolese or the Burkinabes. Is the same
like
thing
what you are saying. We've seen this in South Africa, where South Africa is like the New York of Africa, and all these surrounding countries are all piled up into South Africa.
Definitely, that is what I was coming to. Definitely, that was the next example. It's very good that you brought it up. You have seen this in South Africa, that all these countries in East, even some of them in the West, we have a lot of Ghanaians, Nigerians coming all the way from Nigeria, coming to South Africa. We have seen this. So this creates the conflict, and then we give it names, and then we call it xenophobia and what and what. But these things are called the class struggle. You know, there's a book which was written by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah called The Class Struggle in Africa. So what does this tell us? It tells us that unlike the unwise elders which we have right now who are governing the continent, we are supposed to look at the continent in its entirety. Not only in its entirety, but we are supposed to look at the African people in their entirety, those on the continent and those outside the continent. Because knowledge the wisdom has been given to us by our elders, and it has been told to us that the continent, the people, whenever you are an African or a person of African descent, the conditions of Africa are reflected on you. You understand? No black man is going to be respected anywhere in the world if the African continent is not up there. It has not risen. It has not occupied its position, which it is supposed to occupy. So we are supposed to look at the continent. We take the responsibility as African youth, and we know that this continent belongs to us. And then the responsibility is supposed to be for the whole continent. It's not only, don't say I'm African. You should not say I'm from Kenya. You should not say I'm from Ghana. So I'm supposed to be having a myopic view and then look at only Ghana. You're supposed to look at the continent in its entirety. Be concerned, Mali. Be concerned about what is happening in Kenya. Be concerned about what is happening in Burkina Faso. What is France doing there on the African continent? We should be concerned about these problems. What is happening in Uganda? What is happening in the Congo? Why has the United Nations been in the Congo there for 60 years and nothing has happened there? There has not been peace. So they are exploiting the resources. The multinationals, these foreign companies, from France, from all of Europe, the United States, Australia, now China has come on board, and India, also a very weak country, is coming on board to come and exploit. So we are supposed to be concerned about, if you are in Ghana or you are in South Africa, you should be concerned about what is happening in Congo. Because Congo, we know, is the richest part of Africa on this continent, even the richest part of the world. Okay, so we as Africans, we are supposed to be responsible for that place and protecting those resources. Because once we correct conditions there in the Congo alone, it can be well for us, because the whole continent right now is around, $3 trillion in the economy. But the Congo alone, it is estimated that resources in the ground alone is around 80 trillion. So this is just enough resources even to take care of the whole of Africa. So we are supposed to be concerned about the conditions, whatever is happening there.
I love how you are putting it, and I think one of the, and I really appreciate also platforms like this, the Radio 54 and other media outlets, because in average youth does not know what you are talking about right now.
Yes.
They don't have that information. The mainstream media does not let it out there, and people are lazy to research, to read, to do stuff like that. So most people, they actually don't see any need why we should be fighting for Congo. I'm just looking at my own Zimbabwean problems, my own South African problem, but I'm not aware that Congo itself, if we can fight for it with the 38 trillion in the ground, that can feed the rest of Africa and everybody else outside Africa.
Definitely.
So lack of information is also something that is killing our young people.
Yes, it's very important. So what I was saying is that once we have taken the responsibility, that we know that we, the youth, are the ones who are supposed to, to correct the ills in this society, then we dedicate ourselves to the entire continent. And then the platforms, they have come. Now the platforms are there now. We have a platform like right now, Radio 54 Panorama. We have Twitter. We have all these. Do not be lied to that these platforms cannot cause change. They can cause change. I'll give you an example. You can see what happened in Nigeria. This was just social media. This is what brought about this movement. And now this movement, even though it was suppressed, it went back underground. This movement is there now. The thing is building up. Why is it continuously building up? Because the system that has been employed on the continent is a failure system. It is a failure system. Neoliberalism in itself, which was imported onto the African continent, is a failure system. It has failed in Europe. That is why you see Europe has been in a downward spiral. You can talk of countries like Italy. You can talk of Spain. You can talk of Greece. Okay? You can talk of France. You have seen demonstrations in France. People are demonstrating because of the increasing income inequality, the gap between the poor and the rich. There is a lot of problems. You have seen Britain. You have seen the stress that the European Union is under, the Brexit. These are all economic stress, not anything. So this is the decline they are in. So the system which they brought and they are imposing on us, it is crumbling. It is not working. It's the same thing we have seen. They have printed more than, I think, up to more than $6 trillion. You see, just under this period of COVID. So the system is not working. The income inequality, the gap has increased. And this is the system which was imported onto the African continent. So it is not working in Nigeria. Okay, so the people, they rose up, but the thing is getting worse. They suppressed the people with the military, and the movement went back underground. Now it's the same thing which we are seeing in Kenya, that the movement is continuing to build up. It's the same thing which is happening in Uganda, which we are seeing. The revolt which we saw in Mali also is the same thing which took out the president, because France is up there also imposing, its will. The same thing which we are seeing in Chad, because of these policies which are imported. And these policies, most of them, have been for the exploitation of the African continent. Now we have another movement which is building up in Ghana. Today we are supposed to have a demonstration in Ghana. That demonstration is about fixing the country, because people have started a hashtag. If you go on Twitter, there's a hashtag, fix the country Ghana, fix the country Ghana, because things are dysfunctional. And many times, one thing which I would like the youth to be on guard is that we have been divided very many times by saying Ghana is the beacon of democracy. And this is very dangerous. It's very dangerous to the rest of the African continent. Botswana has been, singled out many times and praised, as a success story. But when you look at Botswana, Botswana is just 2 million people. It's not even up to a small town in countries.
That's true.
Like Ghana. You see, in countries like Ghana, or in countries like South Africa, or in countries like Ethiopia.
That's
or
a
Nigeria.
good analysis.
A small. And they tell us that this is a success story. This is not a success story. 2 million. You cannot tell us that is a success story and you put it on a pedestal. They have been telling us that South Africa is a success story. This is ridiculous. When the Africans in South Africa, they own less than 15% of the land, and you are telling us this is a success story. This is ridiculous. So they have been telling us that Ghana is the beacon of democracy, is a success story. It is not. This is not true. And it is that, like I said, neoliberalism and its cracks, they have been showing for a very long time, and they are continuing to show. When you come to Ghana, the 3 major exports of the economy, they are cocoa, gold, and oil. These sectors are controlled by foreign companies. You see, companies from Canada, companies from Australia, companies from the United States and Europe. So this is the genesis of their praising Ghana, that it is a success story, so that other people can aspire to be like Ghana. But when you come and examine very well, you don't see that Africans own anything there. They don't need the financial sector. It is all dominated by banks and multinational companies, and the Africans are on the periphery. In most times, the Africans are on the sidelines of the economy. And these companies, these multinational companies, they are the ones driving the economy. And because they control the media, they control the international media, they continue to print out propaganda and saying this is the beacon of democracy. The rest of Africa should emulate, should aspire to be like Ghana, which is not true. So I would like to call on to the Africans, and especially the African youth, that they have to be on guard. They have to be on guard. They have to guard against this kind of division that has been done by the imperialists and the neo-colonialists and their, and their surrogates, who are the current African misleaders who are occupying power. So there has been this movement going on in Ghana, and today the youth, they are dissatisfied because there is erratic, power supply. Power has been going on the whole country. There is no, there is no water. There's a lot of water problems. There is a lot of destruction of the water bodies due to illegal mining. A lot of people have been going into illegal mining because the gold, the proceeds, the royalties, the taxes which are supposed to come from the illegal, from the legal mining and take care of the people. These multinationals like Newmont, Anglo Ashanti Gold, they carry all the money and they send it to you. So they don't leave any money to the government to be able to create industries, to be able to take care of the people. So the people, they resort to illegal mining to be able to take care of themselves. Like we know all of Africa, people have been left, the citizens, the African citizens have been left to take care of themselves. So this leads them to all kind of, illegal activities, for example, robbery and all those things, so that they can be able to take care of themselves, because the leadership looks at themselves as if they are not responsible for their people. So there has been this pollution of water bodies in the country, lakes, rivers. So now the water company cannot purify water anymore, and there is a lot of water crisis. There's a lot of erratic power supply. There's no power supply. The power is always off. All these problems, and the people are dissatisfied in the country. There is a lot of corruption has been going on, and the president has been lying to people, just giving them smooth talk, and the people are not seeing. So the youth had decided to rise up and come and demonstrate on the streets. But the police now is on the streets. They got an injunction from the High Court to stop the demonstration on the streets. Now the youth have taken it on Twitter. So I would encourage all the African youth to do the same. We need to do this all over the continent and call for a united Africa. We need to start fixing Africa, and it is going to start with the African youth. Because without fixing the African continent, you cannot fix one part of the continent. You cannot say you are going to build Rwanda to a first world country when you have problems in Congo, when you have problems in Uganda, you have problems in Tanzania. Definitely, these people will overrun this small economy, because how many people in Rwanda? Rwanda is just $10 billion economy. So if you push it maybe up to 30 billion and everyone is living well, definitely the people around you, they will come and overrun the economy and eat it up. So that is all I can say to the African youth and all those people who are of African descent around the world. We have to take the responsibility as the youth, and then take responsibility for the entire continent, and then use social media right now, which we have. And this social media will spur us to go out there on the streets. We need to build the momentum, continue, building this continent, because the problems we are facing, the major problem is imperialism and neocolonialism, and its surrogates who are in power. So once we remove these cogs, then we will be able to reconstruct our continent. Thank you very much, Mother.
Okay, thank you so much for what you just shared. It's really important. But you spoke about us coming together and rallying behind each other to build Africa. And when they stop us, we need to go on social media, which is okay. But I've seen that as much as we want to do it as Africans, to fight everything that is happening from our leadership that stretches to the West, to Europe, to end up coming and taking our resources. I've seen that when we make enough noise, like in Nigeria, we ended up having the likes of Burna Boy taking the Europeans, the West, saying impose sanctions on Nigeria, impose sanctions. They end up having the same people that were trying to run away to come on board. We end up having those type of organizations and movements that were trying to run away, funding the same thing that we are saying we are fighting. So at the end of the day, I don't know how are we going to mobilize each other without that external enemy coming in again and still use one of our own, to still use our youth to fight what we are trying to build.
Yeah, I think people like, for example, Burna Boy, he's a very, big celebrity. I like him and his level of consciousness, but also we have to understand that all of us have this level of consciousness which we reach as Pan-Africanists. I believe that the people who are supposed to lead this movement are supposed to be purely Pan-Africanists, not people who just know about the problems. People who are ideologically pure Pan-Africanists, and they understand the genesis of Africa's problems. So when you understand Africa's problems, that is how you will not deal with the small colonial states. These are colonial states when you look at them. Okay, so your understanding, your level of consciousness supersedes that level. You start looking at the continent at its entirety. People like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, I think they had problems because they were thinking on that level of consciousness. I was discussing this with a friend of mine today on the level of consciousness, why these people who are sort of like geniuses have these problems in dealing with people, is that people like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who see things that are 50 years ahead or 100 years ahead, they operate on a level of consciousness which is different from the ordinary people. So they have this ability to see the future, which other people are not seeing, and it brings about conflict. So that is why for them, from time to time, there's this need to switch off this level of consciousness and come down to the level of the people they are dealing with, or the people they are leading. So when it comes to the African continent, you have to go back and understand before the British, before the Arabs came in to invade the
everyone else is.
Yes. So then you will be able to solve its problem. It is important for us to read our history. Very, very important. Not from independence, not when, for example, when you talk of South Africa, the history should not be read from independence in 1992 or 1993 or 1994. It should not be read from there. The history should be read all the way from the start, from the beginning. How did South Africa relate with the rest of Africa? How did Mansa Musa do his things? How did the Buganda kingdom flourish in the East? You know, because we had only a few kingdoms on the continent. So why have we divided? Why was our continent divided in around 54, 54 states, 55 African states? So how did our people go out from the continent all the way, outside on the continent? Were they going there before? What happened? And how did we, again, stop slavery, which was going on? How were we affected? So once you understand all these problems, then you start thinking beyond the colonial states. So I think that is what might have been lacking in with Burna Boy. So once you understand that, you will understand that we solved the problems before Europeans. They came here to learn. So there's no need for us to call on them. There's no need for me to call on the United Nations that they should come and solve problems. We really don't need the United Nations.
They'll never understand, yes.
We don't. They have failed to solve problems everywhere. We have Palestine. Israel every day is bombing and killing innocent children, women, in Gaza. Even yesterday night, they killed a lot of people. At a mosque, they came to pray and Israel came. The United Nations has failed. So it can't solve problems in Africa. They failed to solve problems in Vietnam when the United States was attacking innocent people and killing innocent people. They cannot solve problems here. They failed to solve the problem in Rwanda, and people, 1 million people died in the Rwandan genocide. It's the Rwandan people who came up to solve their own problems. It was not the United Nations. So once we understand this, once you have that understanding that in Nigeria itself, even during the Biafra War, it is not the United Nations which came in and solved that problem. It was actually the Africans, the African Union and the Nigerians themselves. That time it was called the Organization of African Unity. So it is the one who solved the problems. Then when you understand that, then there's no need to call for any sanctions on this continent. There's no need for you to say the United Nations to come and save us. They can't save us. These people have been part of the cartel that has been exploiting Africa. It is an organization which was set up as part of the cartel to exploit the African continent. So I think my brother, yes, they are part of the problem. IMF, all these organizations. So once you understand this, then there's no need for you to cry out and say, I'm going to the United Nations to cry out. No, we say we will sit here and solve the problem. The solutions are within the African people themselves, especially the youth. Especially the youth. So I think that is where my brother, like Burna Boy, was lacking. So the pressure, what happened in Nigeria, the pressure was supposed to be sustained. Okay, what he was supposed to do, he was supposed to call to the people like Wizkid, people like Davido. These people are supposed to come together and continue. They should use their money the resources which we have been given today, actually, I'll tell you that we have more resources today to liberate Africa, more than our ancestors had during slavery, more than our ancestors had during colonialism. We have more resources. Information can travel at the speed of light. Okay, so right now, you know what is happening in Ghana. I've told you that there's a movement going on in Ghana. So if I say people should start a movement in South Africa, people should start a movement in Kenya, people should start a movement in Uganda, and that movement should be a universal movement for us to call for a united Africa. Information travels at the speed of light now. We have ample resources right now. People like Davido, you know, Wizkid, you know, Caspar Nyovest, you know, these people, all of them, we are supposed to be calling on them to come together. People like Jose Chameleone in Uganda and all the other celebrities in Tanzania. These people, we are supposed to call them. People like Sarkodie in Ghana, they are supposed to come on board as the youth and call for the right thing to be done on this continent. And what is the right thing? The right thing starts with unifying Africa, because without that, we are not going anywhere. So I think that is the strategy which we are supposed to, you know, employ. We have enough. Yes, we have enough resources, more than what our ancestors had. But we just need to call for that movement and sustain it. Movements, they don't last 1 day, 2 days, 1 month. Like Nigerian movement, it lasted maybe for 2 weeks. It doesn't work like that. It is supposed
to be something continuous.
Sustained. Look at the South African movement. Years and years, more than 10 years. It lasted for more than 10 years. The independence movement, it lasted for more than 10 years in the Gold Coast. From 1945 in Ghana up to 1957. Okay, that is 12 years. When Nkrumah came back to Ghana, 1947, he came back and he achieved independence for Ghana, 1957. So he came back in 1947, achieved independence for Ghana in 1957. That is a period of 10 years. The movement had already started in 1945. So we are supposed to look at, this is how we are supposed to look at it. It is not a 2 weeks affair. So our resources, we are supposed to dedicate it to the liberation of Africa, to rescue the biggest part of the resources which are being sucked out of Africa. For example, $200 billion is being sucked out of Africa every year, 200 billion. But when you look at the continent, we have an infrastructure deficit on the continent of $200 billion. And this infrastructure deficit, if we build infrastructure, $200 billion every year on the African continent, imagine the amount of jobs which will be created on the continent. The highways from the east to the west of Africa, from the south to the north, all the way to Egypt, Morocco, Algeria. Can you imagine how many jobs we will create for all the African continent? So these are the problems which we are supposed to be looking at. So the movement should be sustained when we start it over 10 years.
All right, thank you so much, Kwame. I really appreciate you being here. You spoke about unity, you spoke about sustaining the movement, and you also spoke about resources. When it comes to resources, I think I had a conversation with King Ajamu where he was saying, you know, it's very easy to mobilize resources even from our brothers and sisters in diaspora, who are in America, Canada, and the rest of the world. But do they feel welcome? Do they feel fit in? Do we reach out when we are starting these movements? And I don't know. This is for you, King Ajamu. I want you to like highlight. Do you? I remember you once said.
Myself, I will make a comment on that one too. I'll make a comment.
Okay. I was talking to him and he said someone was asking. I was talking to someone who during an anti-sanctions Zoom meeting, and the guy said my mother was listening in, and she asked, "Why would they sanction Zimbabwe? Who does that? What are sanctions?" By the way, it made me laugh. Like, okay, so most of people out of Africa who are of African descent, our brothers and sisters, they're actually not aware of all this that is happening or that is being done to African countries. They are not aware of the need for resources, the need for unity, and where they fit in or involvement, they are not aware of it. So how do we get to that stage? How do you think what needs to be done to have our Africa diaspora be included, feel at home, be part and parcel of unifying Africa?
All right. To begin, I mean, before I start, Brother Kwame, I'm 100% on the things that he was saying. It's on point. And I actually wrote everything down because I agreed with everything. And by the way, a disclaimer: I'm speaking for the behalf of me. I'm not speaking on any organization. I'm not speaking me. I'm speaking from me, from my heart, from my mind, speaking from me. All right,
Yes,
so
yes.
we got to get that straight because I know there's some that I have to put a disclaimer out there because of the powers that be that want to limit this type of exchange and speaking and so forth.
Yeah.
Just like in Africa, there's a micro approach on things. So everybody's looking at the small areas, their community, their homes, whatever. They're looking at that. They're not looking at the broader macro, us as a community as a whole. So here in the United States, it's the same concept. If you live in Houston or you live in Miami or you live in Tampa or you live in Washington, D.C., it's like all you know is what you see around you. Even though you have TV, even though you have social media, you're really not, you're not really, how do you say, you're concerned, but you're not concerned. So in other words, if a brother's getting beat down in say New York, your emotions may rise and you may see it on the television set, but at the end of the day, you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm down here in Florida. But why I gotta worry about that at this moment? And it's the contrary. You should be worried about it because your behind is next. So the thing is that that micro aspect to looking at things is become redundant, and a lot of our people here in the United States tend to take that to heart. So they don't look at it from a micro standpoint. As Kwame was saying, and many Pan-Africanists say, and so forth. And that's true. You got to look at it from a macro because whatever is happening 10,000 miles away or wherever is happening within your own state or wherever is happening outside your city will affect you in time. It will affect. It's funny how the brother Kwame got turned down for protesting. And in the United States, they went a step further. They actually signed an anti-riot bill. They actually signed an anti-riot bill that says you cannot protest, which is against the actual U.S. Constitution, which I don't really give a darn. But they went against their own Constitution and said you can't protest. And by the way, if you are protesting, we're allowed to run you over with vehicles. Anti-riot bill. Go look it up. Check it out. All right. They signed it. So that means if they signed it in Florida, is it possible to sign it in other states? Yeah. Is it possible to go international with that idea? Yes. So it's like in certain areas, they'll implement things and everybody's quiet about it. They don't say nothing about it. And then next thing you know, it becomes a bill. And then now they're fighting it or now they have a problem. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's too late. You should have saw that coming. But as far as people in the United States becoming more and more connected with the continent, that is a long-seated problem. All right. It's long-seated. I mean, come on. I mean, most of the people I talk to, I get made fun of because I'm wearing African clothing. Really? I'm like, what else would I be wearing? What else would I be wearing? And the reason why I'm wearing the African clothing is not to show, oh, look at me, I'm an African. Oh, look at me, I'm cool with my brothers. I'm trying to start an economy. If we just wear our own clothes, we can all get paid. If we just wear our own clothes. I mean, I would love some like kente socks, kente shirt or something. I mean, I'm just saying, we got to start thinking like, okay, if I just change my clothing alone, that can actually start a revolution.
Definitely.
If I want some African underwear, that can start an African revolution in the fact that you got to mobilize now to produce these type of things, which causes economies to grow, people to have jobs and so forth. But it's a mindset. So even on my side, on this side, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I've been trying to do for so long with these brothers and sisters on this side. But I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. And this is coming from me. It ain't coming from nobody else, no organization, nothing like that. Coming from me is when I talk to brothers and sisters, unfortunately, the big R word comes into effect. There's a word that starts with the letter R. It's called religion. So they immediately attack me with it. Oh, no, we don't need that. We just got to wait for this and that. And we just got to pray and everything's going to be all right. And I'm like, no. I don't have a problem with you praying. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with your belief system. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is your lack of action. Can you do something? True. Can we do something together? And then after that, you go pray, and then I'll go plan some more stuff to do. All right? So we're going to come together. We're going to actually do something. And then after that, go pray, go do what you got to do. I have no problem with that. And then we're going to come back again, and we're going to do some more stuff. So the problem I'm noticing that is an issue. Another issue is this lack of education in the education system. We don't really talk about. I'm in the education system. I'm a teacher. I'm a world history teacher. Been a teacher for 9 years. And if I bring a lesson into the classroom and I'm talking about Africa, it's usually downplayed. It's usually like, well, you know, how's that going to help him? And how's that going to work? And boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, well, the majority of the students are of African descent, so it would actually help with self-esteem. It would actually help with behavior problems. It would actually help with them doing better in other subjects. So I think it's necessary. Oh, well, you know, we already got a curriculum. We already got books. So just follow that and don't worry about nothing else, and everything's going to be all right. So lack of education is the key. Then both of you guys, Kwame and Queen Shumba, you guys both mentioned the media. I mean, if you go on TV, everything you see is something negative about Africa. That everybody over there poor, everybody in the Ugubugu tribe running around, don't know what they doing. And I'm like, no, that's false. That's false. Okay, and then I hear all the time, oh, they got more jungle in Africa. And I said, no. The most jungle in the world is in South America. So why aren't you charging those people with the same things you charging Africans with? It doesn't make any sense. There's cities over there. There's people there. I'm looking at them like, what are you talking about? That's the most ridiculous thing. And then furthermore, I always remind people that let's go back 11 generations. Let's go back 12 generations. All right, because that's about 200 years. Let's go back. And I ask you the question, your grandparents at that time, 12th generation, who were they? Where did they come from? What language did they speak? What religion did they practice? What type of clothing did they have on? What type of food did they eat? And then I don't live in the past. I live in the present. No. I'm not asking you to live in the past. Okay, I'm not talking about no present. I ain't even talking about the future. I'm saying, can you answer those questions? If you go back 12 generations, what were your people doing? And a lot of people cannot answer that. I don't know who was 12 generations ago. I said, I could tell you that it's either one or two things. Number one, your behind was already here in the United States. Somehow you were here. I don't know how you got here, but you got here. All right. And you were doing your own thing. That's number one. That's one theory or one aspect of I want to say theory. It would be factual. That's one fact. The second fact is you were brought over from another land. You were brought over from somewhere else. So and then it's like, well, I don't know how I'm going to find out. I go, well, there's technology today. You can go take a DNA test like my family did. Go take a DNA and then they'll tell you. They're not going to lie to you. I mean, if you think it's a lie, that's fine. If you think your DNA is going to be manipulated, well, guess what? They already got stuff on you, which they can manipulate and so forth. So the thing is the education aspect of it. Also, I think a lot of people on this side is afraid to do business on that side. For some reason, when I mention the word Nigeria, people's faces, they get all, ugh. And then I'm like, I'm like, what's the problem with Nigeria? And there's a bunch of people over there, and they just sit around the computer and they try to scam people and take their money and stuff. I was like, oh, really? So that's the 330 million people. That's what they're doing. That's what you're telling me. You're telling me the whole nation is just sitting around scamming people, because that's not the case. It's a select few. And I said, but wait a minute. If they are scamming, didn't they learn from maybe somebody over here how to scam? Because people over here scamming. They scamming billions, trillions.
Up to now, they are scamming us.
They're scamming trillions, billions.
Even I was talking about.
So I'm like, yeah, and then somebody tried to tell me that Nigeria is the most lawless.
Actually, what people do. So sorry for interrupting you guys.
No, you're good.
What they say, the report which came out, the United Nations report which came out. What is what is holding Africa back from investing and developing? Number one, it is the illicit financial outflow. We have the United Nations estimated it last year in September at $100 billion, but even the United Nations underestimated it. You see, they said this is an statement. So when you look at the correct figure, it is around $200 billion. Okay, so this is a scam. But how are they doing this? Through their financial institutions.
That's
financial institutions like Stanbic Bank. Stanbic Bank is looked at as a South African bank. It is not. It is called the Standard Bank from the United Kingdom, from the UK. Okay, it is not. Barclays. These are not South African institutions. These are European institutions. Okay, DSTV. Okay, these are not South African companies. They are, they are portrayed on the African continent as if they are South African companies. The owners are staying in Europe. They are enjoying from Europe. Okay, we have Chevron, all these companies, Newmont, all these Anglo Gold Ashanti. The owners are in Europe and the United States and Canada. They are there. They are exploiting our continent, and they don't pay taxes.
Right.
These banks, they help the mining companies to steal our resources. This is a scam.
Right.
Okay. This is the greatest scamming in human history. When you are talking of scamming, this is the greatest scamming in human history. So I don't want to hear people talking to me about Nigeria when they have not addressed the illicit financial outflows, whereby Europe, Australia, the United States and Canada, and they are scamming Africa of all these resources. So these are the facts. Let us look at the facts, not look at things which are very small and they tell us the Nigerian is scamming, what is ridiculous.
We're even laughing about the Queen is diamond on her crown. Like she got that is something that was looted from Africa, daylight robbery. And we sit here and we look at just this one who is taking. And to be honest, they don't really. I've followed on these scams that they talk about. The way they do it, it doesn't even reach to a fraction. I can't even put a figure on it. But the real scam that is happening in the world, we don't want to talk about it. Okay.
But back to what you were saying, Queen Shumba, about the connection. Before I forget, I apologize for interrupting. Is that even on this side, a lot of the African Americans who don't know, they want to know, but this is what happens. There's a lot of Africans come over from Africa and then they come to the United States and then they forget that they're African. Somehow they conveniently forget. And then now the African Americans go, look, they're not African. They're not acting African. They're not talking about African, this and that. But I said, yeah, well, maybe those individuals came from or they thought in their mind, or they lost their mind when they took the plane ride over and they just forgot and they want to assimilate. So there's this thing called assimilation that I think people don't realize that happens to a person. They want to assimilate and they want to act like the people that are here and blah, blah, blah. That ain't got nothing to do with you not connecting with the continent. So you can't use it as an excuse. When a lot of people use it as an excuse. Oh, well, look what they're doing. Boom, 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 boom. Look, they don't like us. They talk bad about us. Blah, 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 blah. I say, okay, that might be one or two people you meet or what have you. Most of the Africans that I know on this side are like Kwame. They're not assimilated. They're like, we're here and we're gonna do what we gotta do, and we're gonna try to build business, and we're gonna try to make money, and we're gonna try to help somehow. So, and then there's some that say, you know what, I don't want no part in that. I want to act like a European, be like a European, walk like a European. Okay, fine, cool, that's cool. We'll remember that. That's cool. That go do your thing. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that on this side, once again, that education component, and then the fact that a lot of people are just afraid, that lack courage to associate themselves with anything African. And then last part, that R word, the religion, a lot of people think it's evil to associate themselves with people from Africa. So and even people ask me, when you go on those Zoom calls, do they speak English? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what? Like, and I don't even know how to respond, because I'm standing there like, I'm like, well, you speak English? Like, you were taught English. I mean, English is a colonial language. It's not your original dialect. It's not your original tongue. And I'm just like, you know what, y'all? I said, you know what, y'all need to go back over there, do whatever you doing, because I don't even want to deal with y'all right now. And that's how I talk to people. I mean, I don't care. Even my own boss. Oh, is it safe to invest in Africa? And I'm looking at, hey, I got to go. If you don't know already, then you behind. You already behind. True. So now I wanted to touch on what Kwame had said. He talked about imperialism and neocolonialism. I agree 100% on those terms. However, I'm meeting Africans and they're telling me, oh, don't put the blame on the European. I'm like, but wait a minute. If I'm trying to do something good and they already got something in place and it's going to prevent me from doing something quote unquote good, then shouldn't I kind of talk about that? Shouldn't I expose that? Shouldn't I say, well, you know what? I'm trying to do good, but this imperialism and this neocolonialism is sitting right in front of me and I can't get around it because this system, you understand what I'm saying? It's like, why I can't talk about that? Because I talk about that on this side all the time. How they're right now they're repressing voting rights in the United States. They're making it harder for brothers and sisters to vote, and they don't even know it. And then some brothers and sisters have joined these weird political parties in the United States that are, I guess, for imperialism and neocolonialism, and they don't even know it. And I'm not going to mention the parties, but there's two parties that are the main parties here. I'll mention it: the Democrats and the Republicans, and you have some people switching sides and all kinds. I'm not into none of that stuff because both sides don't really. They're the same feather, the same bird. So I don't really fall into none of that. I don't deal with that, and people get mad. But yeah, also too, I was talking to a brother in Soweto. In Soweto, that's it, right? Soweto. And his power went out, and I'm like, what? How did power go out? Like the brother was in the dark on the Zoom call.
Yeah.
So then I said, hey, brother, like, why are you in the dark? And he said, oh, well, that happens a lot in the neighborhood that I'm in. So I said, is it predominantly black? And he's like, of course. Soweto is all black. And I said, maybe that's the problem. And then, immediately I was told that one of the issues of the power being out is because somebody didn't pay the bill. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. That could be the case. But here's the thing. In the United States, when a business goes under and they still have the building is still powered, even though nobody's paying the bill, because they're trying to protect that resource or that asset of that particular company. So the company is going to, you understand what I'm saying? So in Soweto, can they keep the power on 24/7? Yes. But I think because it's a black community or an African community, or I should say a black dominated community within the Zania, that they're like, man, forget it. Just cut the power. What they need power for. It's almost like a it's like a warfare, like a psychological warfare. You know what I'm saying? If we don't do X, Y, and Z, they cut off the electricity. So the brother was just like, we had talked in private, but the thing is that I was amazed at that. Like really, and that's not uncommon here. People think the United States, the power is on all the time. No, in some communities they cut it off. Some communities we don't have good drinking water. We don't have clean drinking water. In some communities we're plagued by police activity. Plagued. I mean, that's all they do. Drive through the same neighborhoods. Trust me. But the thing is that, is there the solution? What is the solution? And I feel it comes from within us, number one. But number two, you also, just like Kwame said, you have to focus on these systems that were designed to prevent you from moving forward. If you don't recognize them, then you don't even know what they're all about. What do they do? How do they fund themselves? How do they act? Because it's funny, like the CIA, for instance, and the FBI and all these organizations, they work across the globe. They're in places I can't even pronounce. And I'm like, man, that's odd. But why would they be over there doing this and that? And it's because there's an agenda. There's this plan. But if you don't know the plan, then how are you going to stop it? If you don't know their plans, that's all I'm saying. And I'm not advocating war. I'm just advocating justice. I'm advocating some form of, okay, this is what we're going to do collectively. We understand this thing is here. And we're gonna try to get rid of that because it's not fair. And I think a lot of brothers and sisters don't realize that, even on my side. And when you talk to them about it, they're like, what are you talking about, man? We just got a stimulus check. I hear that all the time. I was like, stimulus? I don't know if y'all know about that. Y'all know about the stimulus check? The U.S. government is giving out money every 2 or 3 months and so forth. And I don't have a problem with that. But the problem is a lot of people got quiet now. They're quiet. They're like, I don't want to talk because I want to get that stimulus check.
So this is where the issue of resources come in. You see, the situation in Africa is that our millennials or the youth, the younger generation, they've actually woke up, but then because of lack of resources, he who feeds you controls you. They are always those perpetrators who come within the youth and cause commotion. So this is where the call for our brothers and sisters who are out of Africa to bulk Africa up. What is the project that you are working on? Okay, I got a farm in Zimbabwe. I want to start breed cattle for beef so that we can supply, and the percentage from there is going to support our movement. With those kind of systems set up where it's backed by business, where we own our own institutions, we can able to move without anybody coming to penetrate using money. Young people in Africa are hungry. There is just a lot of people who don't have jobs, youth who don't have anything to do. So you will find them being recruited to become rebels, being recruited to stand up. You have mentioned Kwame, you mentioned most of these movements, the young people rising up. I always look at the Pan-Africanism within those opposition movements. Some of them are backed by the same Western system that we are running away from. You get what I'm saying? So it ends up where I, as a Pan-African, cannot support an opposition party that have young people simply because of the ideologies that they follow. Is it Pan-Africanism or is it backed by the West for regime?
Yeah, I think what I can say about that is that once you embrace the idea that you are going to provide a solution, once you understand that the responsibility is upon you, then you also understand that it is not, a ready carpet is not going to be laid out for you. So that's you have to constantly reinvent your strategies of fighting. So you have to understand the people you are fighting against. These are people with very sophisticated means of fighting against us. when you go and examine Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's book called Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, that is, he warns us that that is the stage where we are, because imperialism has metamorphosed, from different stages. Because at first it used the slavery, it had control over the bodies of Africans, the mind, and then the land. So when slavery was defeated, they came to take over the lands because they lost the control of the bodies. Now they came to take over the lands. So they controlled our lands through a system called colonialism. Now, when we fought against colonialism, the war was lost. They lost our bodies, they lost the lands. Now it became psychological now. So that is the level where we are. That is the system called neocolonialism. So we are at a psychological level. The struggle is of the mind. You see? So you have to reinvent your strategies. You're not supposed to be at the same, at the same level at which they were struggling in 1960. We are very fortunate that people like Kwame Nkrumah were able to write down some of the things which they saw, in the future. They were able to understand, they were able to analyze the system, how it works. And they told you that the system works through Hollywood, they work through education system, they work through the culture, all these are doors. They work through the financial institutions, and they are there, they are filled there. So they infiltrate. So it is up to us to take that responsibility if we are saying that we are going to liberate our land. And then we precisely analyze those people that have been infiltrated, or those people who have been sent to infiltrate the movement which we are, going to, the movement which we are building and we are using to liberate our people. What I would like to people to know is that you are not supposed, this is not supposed to be weakening us. Okay, we are instead supposed to increase we are supposed to be boldened because we have understood how the system is working. So we should constantly, we should constantly reinvent ourselves. Like in a certain book called the Bible, they always say that you have to test the spirit. You constantly test the spirit to know, know the right one and the wrong one. So there is ways to test. There is ways you can test whether this is the correct spirit of Pan-Africanism or this is not the spirit of Pan-Africanism. And then you operate with those people with caution. If you are there to support them, you operate with caution because you know that these people may have been infiltrated. But that does not stop us from moving forward, does not, make us freeze, doesn't make us frozen and then we stay in one position and say we will not fight on. Because the thing is, imperialism has been weakened, very, very weakened, to the point that the war has only remained at the psychological level.
The mind.
And they are very vulnerable now. They only have one tool. They can't use the military to control. Because right now, like I told you, a movement started in Ghana about some weeks ago. And they saw what was happening on social media and it was building up. The youth are building up even up to now. So they stopped the youth from coming out, to the streets to demonstrate in Accra. They saw now today they have brought the militaries. They are on the streets. Police is on the streets with their anti-riot gears in Ghana. You see, so the movement is trying to spill out. Now, what the movement is, what the youth are going to do, this movement is going to go downwards. It's going to go downwards and then to continue building up. You see, so they don't stop us because you cannot now control the people with the militaries. So the war now is psychological. It's psychological.
Right.
So we the people who have understood this, then we continue to call upon the African youth. That is why myself, I take the responsibility of calling upon the African youth. You see what has happened in Nigeria. You see what is happening in Ghana. You see what is happening in South Africa. You see what is happening in Kenya. You see what is happening in Uganda, Mali, Chad. All these are signs that you, the African youth, if you work together, do not talk about your individual colonial states. These are colonial states that we are, to subjugate you, to put you down. You are supposed to talk about the whole Africa. talk about the whole Africa and move with your brothers all over the continent and say we want a united Africa. This is what we want because we know that is where the solutions are. Because that is what has said. They have been saying for all along. So imperialism is a psychological war, like I told you. Once you said that we want a united Africa, things will shape themselves. Because people like Julius Nyerere, when he came to Ghana in 1997, he said that until Africa is united, it cannot even start solving its problems. You understand?
You say, let me cut you off a little. I wanted to highlight something. During colonization or the apartheid era, African young people, the revolutionary leaders, they came together to assist one another, one way or another. Those who had already got independence, they housed those ones who did not offer training, bases, and so forth.
Yes.
And because how did they make it possible? It's because they recognized their enemy. That we have one enemy and we have one fight. We are fighting here because we want to end colonization. We want to end apartheid. This is our enemy. I think what is lacking today in today's young people that will make us look like we cannot unite. We don't know what to unite for. We are too divided. You find a certain group that is uniting to fight African leaders as the problem. Then there is one that is uniting to fight neocolonialism as the problem. So which one is which in that scenario?
This scenario it played out even in most of the movements, except the movement which I saw when you look at the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution is the one which brought about the stoppage of slavery, contrary to what is taught in the mainstream, that Britain and France and its missionaries, they are the ones that stopped slavery. These are lies. These people that did not stop slavery.
Yeah, that's true.
What led to the stoppage of slavery was the Haitian Revolution. The Africans in Haiti, or that country at that time was called San Domingo, they revolted against France and they beat Napoleon. These people, they did not have a lot of weapons. You know, Napoleon is normally praised that he was a great general, but he was not really a great general because he was defeated by Africans with no much weapons. So the defeat of Napoleon in Haiti is the one which brought about the stoppage of slavery. That was the genesis of the stoppage of slavery. Now, this led to a scenario whereby things have been spiraling on and going forward. Which point were you making? I want to respond precisely to that point.
Okay. I was looking at our revolutionary leaders managed to unite because they had one enemy.
Definitely. Yeah. So that division, they normally capitalize it. So the France came to divide the people who were united in Haiti, in San Domingo, to divide Toussaint Louverture from Dessalines. One gentleman was called Dessalines. They were all generals in the army, but Toussaint Louverture was the one who was leading. So they could not find a way of reaching Dessalines to separate him from Toussaint Louverture. So they took out Toussaint Louverture to go and negotiate, and they took him and he died there. Now, it's the same thing which played out in the United States during the civil rights movement in the 60s, that they were very careful to try to keep Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King divided. You know, it's the same scenario of divide and conquer. Now, first, also, when you come back to the continent of the African, you come back to the African continent itself, you had the Casablanca and the Monrovia group. You have a group of Dr. Nkrumah, and then you have another group which has Liberia, Nigeria, Tanzania on the other side. They are opposing what Nkrumah is telling them. Because Nkrumah, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah saw things clearly. He saw things, like a prophet. He saw things like a seer, and he's warning people that, for example, in 1963, he warned the people that if we do not unite, they are going to overthrow all of us as presidents who are sitting here in a very short period. And when they did not do what he appealed to them, when he went back, Dr. Nkrumah was overthrown. They overthrew the Nigerian president that time. A lot of coups happened all over the continent. You get what is happening. So this is what happened. So this scenario continues to play out, that they continue to want to capitalize. They want to capitalize on these divisions on the continent, and even amongst the youth themselves. These things happen. They will continue to happen. But like I said, our spirit is not supposed to be dampened.
Because of that, yeah.
It is not. So we who understand what is going on, we are supposed to move forward like soldiers. We know that the victory is at hand. So the people amongst us who are fighting against us, we are supposed to analyze the situation and continue forward. We reinvent our tactics constantly. We reinvent ourselves in the struggle as we call onto our ancestors to come and strengthen us and continue giving us wisdom. You see, and then we read our enemy. We continue understanding, studying him. Yeah, so that is what I can say about that mentality of division which arises. Some are arguing for our enemies, and some of them actually, what you have to understand is that they argue because of lack of understanding of knowledge of the enemy, even a lack of understanding.
Modus operandi.
So, like for example, when you go back to 1963 in Addis Ababa at the formation of the OAU, Organization of African Unity, Kwame Nkrumah was arguing because he has analyzed the system and he has understood it. Actually, before he had written a book called Africa Must Unite, which I recommend that every youth should read because it is even free on the internet. When you go on the internet, you can find that book for free if you just Google it. He had written that book and distributed it to all the heads of state in Africa. But it's like they did not read it. In that book, he was warning them about what will happen. So, but they continued to divide themselves. Some of them is because they were not so sophisticated as Dr. Nkrumah was, because he had analyzed the system and understood it. So most of the people, a lot of people, they argue because they have been bought out, but other people, they argue about with this system, because they don't have enough knowledge and sophistication to understand this system, how sophisticated it is. Because the thing is, neocolonialism, imperialism is very, very sophisticated, and it has constantly reinvented itself. It has penetrated culturally, socially, economically. It has penetrated all our systems, and that is why you see when we're
and the worst part of religion.
Yes, religion, all these information, all the information we are being fed, Hollywood, all this is propaganda. When you are watching on TV, for example, things from Hollywood, you are constantly seeing the American flag, the United States flag. This is subconscious programming for you to be able to side with the United States as good guys. You are constantly seeing in Hollywood movies, they are telling you how the CIA is a good guy. You see, they are solving problems around the world. But the truth is, this is a terrorist organization. You see, so which is destroying a lot of countries around the world and overthrowing governments. So they are programming you, subconsciously trying to program you so that you can side with them. So we have to understand how sophisticated this system is. And then we continue forward. And then we teach to those who can be taught. And those who can be taught, we move forward without them.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been, I know we have a lot of things to talk about, but we're left with only 5 minutes, by the way. Yes, I don't know how we got to that. Again, let me just read from Steve Msara Pasi. I think the Africa youth today is lacking that courage to see all the well-articulated points from the guest. There must be a paradigm shift approach to make the youth believe that tomorrow is them and must be vigilant today. Thank you, Steve. I think it's Steve or Stewie Sarapas. Thank you so much, leadership, for that comment. Guys, in the next 5 minutes, I want us to wrap up regarding what is the way forward. How can the youth work together to unite? How do we involve our women without having the gender fights? How do we know which groups to involve? Where exactly are we going from here? And think from the next 4 minutes, I can make 1 minute each, 1.5 minutes each. I can start with you, King Ajam.
Yeah,
We
real
can
quick.
talk.
Any revolutionary movement cannot begin without the female. So you have to put her in her rightful place and foundation. Second, people have to realize that what you do individually matters. So whatever you do as an individual does have an impact on the greater movement. So if you can align yourself with someone, or you can give money or give resources or what have you, that would actually help. And then I think the last thing I would say is that the people need to have courage, because a lot of people are afraid of whatever. They're afraid of maybe losing. They're afraid of imperialism. They're afraid of neo-colonialism. They need to stop being afraid and combat it head on. And I do know that when you have a lot of people together and they're all thinking the same way, that fright or that afraidness goes away, because you're united as one. You're united as one. Yeah, and please research. Research. Brother Kwame mentioned some books. One
Yes,
book
yes.
that I will mention is called The Blueprint for Black Power by
Okay.
Amos N. Wilson. Check that out. Read that out. You can check that out PDF. You can look it up. The Blueprint for Black Power. Very good book.
Okay.
I've read it. I don't know how many times I read it. I don't know. I have a library in the garage. As you can see it behind me over there. But anyway, I love everybody in Africa. I wish everyone well. Understand that things could get rough, but just keep just stay united.
Thank you so much. And Brother Kwame, the book that he mentioned is The Blueprint for Black Power. And King Kwame said he actually, what Africa must unite.
Africa
By
must
Kwame.
unite.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. So you
There is
can.
another one. Another
Yes.
one is called neo-colonialism, the last
Mm-hmm.
stage of imperialism.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Neo-colonialism,
right.
the last stage of imperialism. That is what we are dealing
Okay.
with. That is the problem we are dealing with today in Africa.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Any last remarks, King Kwame? Kwame. Oh my God.
I would just like to thank you for inviting us to articulate some of the problems which we are facing, and to call on to the African youth and to speak to our people. All I can say is that we have to continue this struggle which our ancestors left for us. We cannot betray our children and our grandchildren by doing nothing. We have to rescue the continent. The stages have been laid. They have fought for us from slavery, colonialism. So you cannot say that we reached. Once you see the problems, we still have them. We have not reached. So when the land in South Africa is still occupied by foreigners from Europe, that means we have not reached. Okay, when there is still sanctions on us by Europeans in Zimbabwe, everywhere, France is running around the whole continent, is destroying and stealing from, the United States is occupying the whole continent with its militaries. China is also coming from the other side. You have to understand that we have not reached. It's because we have not reached, and we have to do it as a unified force, as a unified Africa. And if we are building Africa, it's going to be a unified African state. And we, the youth, are supposed to do it. And we have to start now. And it is not going to be a one-day affair, a 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month affair. We have to start now. The movements have already started. They have shown signs. So we have to jump on as all Africans. We, the African youth, we have the tools. We have everything we need. We have enough resources. Support the organizations near you. Pan-African Congress is already there in Azania. Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute, the Rapid Africa Plan, all these organizations are there. Our women are supposed to have, they're supposed to be on the forefront, because the women have a certain power that neutralizes aggression. You put them on the front, the enemy, there's a way he's neutralized. So we need our women at the forefront, that we have to constantly update our struggle, our tactics, our strategies, so that we move forward and liberate Africa within the next, 10 years, within the next 10 to 12 years, by 2030, 2031, 2032, the continent should be liberated, from neocolonialism. So that is all I can say, and I want to thank everyone. Thank you, Martha, for inviting me.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, to those who tuned in. This is Martha Matarenda Shumba on Radio 54, creating the Africa we want. We're going to see you again next week. This is Africa Month, so there is quite a lot of guests that's going to be coming to tackle the African problems and coming up with solutions. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's keep the fight. Let's keep the fire burning. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very much.